Good morning! My name is Julianne, also known as Roadrunner. In 2022, this year, I hiked the entire Appalachian Trail northbound from Springer Mountain to Mount Katahdin, and today I wanted to do a little Q&A. So without further ado, let's get started! So any of the questions, they're not in order. I'm not going in order of preference or anything like that. I'm just going with whichever has been asked and whichever I saved on my iPad. So if I'm looking to my left, it is because I'm looking at the question. So Brad asked me, just curious, if you weighed yourself before and after, did you gain or lose weight? So I actually started out being underweight. I had been physically a little bit sick. And so when I started the hike, I was underweight. As I was hiking and weighed myself about 1 or 2 months later, I actually had gained 10 pounds. And then by the end of the hike, I weighed myself again and I was back to the weight that I started with. However, I had my weight differently proportioned, and I do think that I was more lean, more muscular. And then of course at the end of the hike, I lost some weight just because of the intensity of the hike itself. So when I came back home, my students said that I do look skinny, but healthy skinny, versus when I left, I was looking not healthy skinny. So that answers that. One of my regular followers, Anne, asked a really interesting question. It's a pretty long one, but she says, how did you dream on trail? More vivid than normal? Did you have any nightmares? And if yes, did they reoccur? What was it about? Did you have any spooky encounters, like hearing sounds, or that I don't know what it could be, maybe screams or crying baby, or some strange figures? So this is a really interesting question, and some people would think that this is a strange question. I just personally don't think it's strange. Before I started hiking the Appalachian Trail, I followed a lot of podcasts on strange things happening in the woods, as well as on the Appalachian Trail. And so I definitely was thinking that maybe some of that would happen, that I would see like some strange creature, or at night I'd see red eyes or something like that. And I have to tell you, I even realized it at the end of the hike when I had to go out in the middle of the night. The woods feel the safest that you can imagine. At the end of the hike, I never thought of any crazy, strange creatures. I never heard any weird sounds with regard to not knowing what it could be. I didn't hear any babies crying. I didn't ever feel watched. To be honest, the woods felt very safe. So now when I see these videos about, there's all these videos on TikTok where people say, when you live in the Appalachian Trail, you don't keep your doors open. You don't listen to the cries that are outside. And I'm just like, there's no cries outside. I think people just fearmonger a lot, and I'm not taking away from anybody who has had a strange or creepy experience in the woods, but I was one of those people that was susceptible to it. I was one of those that was looking out for weird creatures in the trees or tiny people on the ground, but I had no such experience and I felt extremely safe in the woods. The next question or questions comes from Dominic Thibodeau. He actually asked a lot of questions. He asked about my final bills. Have you exceeded your budget? I'm actually going to do a video just about money and budget, so that'll come up at some other time. He is also asking, do you think that every AT thru hiker should pay a higher registration fee in order to hire more trail workers, in order to have better maintained trails? I actually don't agree with that. The percentage of thru hikers compared to section hikers, day hikers is very small. I don't know the actual percentage. If I do some research before I make the video, I'll put the percentage here. According to AppalachianTrail.org, more than 3 million people visit the trail every year and over 3,000 people attempt to thru hike. That means the thru hiker percentage is 0.001%. I know that the thru hikers is like a minimal percentage compared to section hikers, and if there's anybody who should pay a higher registration fee, it would be those that are on the trail much more, which are section hikers, day hikers, weekend hikers. But it would of course help to actually have more trail workers, have better maintained trails. We do appreciate all the volunteers that participate in that, so it's really amazing. I'm not against high registration fees, but if the thru hikers have to pay for them, then everybody should have to pay for them, because everybody's on the trail and everybody is definitely putting some wear and tear on the trail. So that's my opinion on that. And then he's also asking, do you think that tick repellent really works? I never really had tick repellent on any of my gear. I don't believe in permethrin with regard to, I think it's toxic for my body, and one of the things that I wanted to do on this hike is detox. I wear a lot of makeup, I wear a lot of perfume, and I usually have nail polish on, and so I believed that I had a lot of toxins build up from those things, and I did not want to put permethrin anywhere near my body. So I didn't wear any permethrin. I actually only found one tick. I believe it was just one tick on my body, and that was the one that I mentioned that had embedded itself in my foot. After that, there were no ticks. We did do tick checks generally pretty regularly, especially during the summertime, and there were no more ticks on my body, and I did not experience any problems with ticks. However, Cheeseball, she was a little bit more of a tick attractor, so a lot of ticks tended to be around her. However, with me personally, I didn't have any ticks. I can't say if tick repellent works because I didn't use it, because I just didn't feel I wanted to put that onto my body or near my body. I know that permethrin doesn't go really on your body, but it goes on all the clothes, and so then when you sweat, it could potentially get onto your body, and so I just didn't want that. The other question he's asking, if you had to do the Appalachian Trail again, would you bring few mouse traps when I sleep in shelters? I wouldn't bring any mouse traps because I wouldn't sleep in the shelters anyway. I'm not a fan of shelters. The next question is from Ron Richardson. He's asking, you were having a problem with your foot. Was it tendonitis, I guess is what he's saying, or stress fracture? And how are you doing getting back to work? Strangely enough, my foot was hurting those 2 days, getting close to Katahdin, and all of a sudden it started feeling better. My body's very strange. I do think I have a lot of psychosomatic symptoms in general. My psyche affects my body a lot. And so I believe that me wanting to get to Katahdin and stressing a lot about that caused some sort of issue with my foot. I'm not saying that I didn't have a problem or that I did injure it by stepping onto stones, but I had no more problems as soon as I hiked Mount Katahdin. Isn't that weird? I don't know. My body is just weird. The next question is from Lasting Dreams, and they are asking whether it was easy or hard to do bear hangs. If you ask Groceries or Fox or Cheeseball, they will tell you that I'm a big fan of bear hangs. I'm pretty good at it, meaning I usually get to throw that stone bag over the limb very, very easily. And so I love bear hanging. It is one of the things that I'm really good at. The other question Lasting Dream has is, I'm so curious about the privy situation. I guess wanting to know how that really works. Some people, they get all weird about talking about it. I don't have a problem with it. I enjoy going number 2 in the woods. I prefer that over privies. Privies are great at times, especially when it's raining, but honestly, my body never was ready to go in the morning. So then I started hiking for about a mile, and then suddenly my body's like, time to go to the bathroom. And so cat holes, I was a little bit worried about it before I started the hike, but the very first time I did, I realized this is actually really nice and pretty clean. And digging cat holes themselves was a little bit tough at times, especially when you had to dig through roots and things like that, but otherwise I really enjoyed more the cat hole situation over the privy situation. The next question is from Johnny Mac. He wants to know how many other Germans I have met on the trail. I didn't count them, but I would have to say about 4 or 5. I was hiking alongside somebody named Fruit Ninja, and she was quite darling. I think she summited before me. There was also somebody named Bear Slayer, because he brought the Haribo bear, like a bear, and then put like a knife through the little candy bear, and then they called him Bear Slayer. I met him. I met another southbound German who told me about some of the river crossings. And then of course I met Jay Wonders Out girlfriend Tina, and I didn't really recognize her. I met her at Laughing Heart Hostel, and she started talking to me, and I was like, oh, she's so nice and she knows about me. And then eventually I realized that she was Jay Wonders Out girlfriend. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, there she is. So definitely a bunch of Germans, but not like a lot. So, but that answers that question. Fork in the Road is asking, was there ever a time when you asked yourself the question, what am I doing out here? Were you determined that you were just doing this? I remember the issue with your shoes. I never had the thought of what am I doing out here? I'm trying to think if I ever did, but I just didn't. I was very determined that I was going to finish this hike. I was determined because I set myself this goal. I was determined because I had people who doubted my ability. I was more fired up when somebody was trying to tell me that I couldn't do something. And so for me, I knew I was just going to do this. So yes, I don't think I ever really had a time where I was questioning myself. In Maine, I was getting very tired and wanting to get done, but I never thought about stopping. I never really thought about stopping. I thought, oh, it would be nice to stop, but I never really thought that I would stop. The next question comes from Dak. He or she is asking, who gave you the name Roadrunner? It was actually on my second day. It was another hiker. I had run by him on my first day of hiking, meaning not running. I was just hiking really, really fast. And I was also singing, which is what I did at the beginning of my hike. I was singing a lot. And the next day in the morning, we were at the same shelter area. He said, hey, have you gotten a trail name yet? And I said, no, not yet, of course, it's just so early. And he said, well, I was thinking about Roadrunner because you were going so fast and you were singing and you're just like that bird. And I really liked the sound of Roadrunner. There were a few other Roadrunners, at least 2 other Roadrunners that I knew in this year. There was a child Roadrunner and then another lady Roadrunner, but I really liked the name, so I stuck with it. Would I keep the name on the PCT? Probably I would keep it, especially unless somebody else had a name for me that I would like better, but probably I would keep it. And then also Udak is saying, sounded like your mom was one of the people concerned about your hike. Was she less worried by the time you visited her? It seems as though she was less worried. It seems as though she was also a little bit proud of me, which was very nice and unusual. And also, did any naysayers apologize after you proved them wrong? No, nobody did. But that's just how that works. People like to put their negative energy on you and try to put you down. And then when you prove them wrong, they're not really going to say, hey, you know what? I'm sorry that I didn't believe in you. But that's just how life works. Geocaching met Chris and Janet is asking, how long have I lived in Florida? And did I ever meet anybody from the Netherlands? I have lived in Florida for a really, really long time, over 20 years. And have I met anybody from the Netherlands on the trail? I have. I have met a few hikers, not many, I think it was like 2 or 3 people, and they ended up hiking together. So I met them all together in one little clump. Top Hat Banjo, which is just a great name, is asking, you ever see anybody with a fiddle out there? He's saying, I'm taking my Nobo in April. I'm not sure if I saw a fiddle. I definitely saw a violin. But it was from a distance and I didn't know if it was a fiddle or a violin, but the hiker was playing. It was more classical music, so I believe it was more of a violin. So I did see that. I also saw a keyboard. I saw lots of banjos, lots of small backpacker guitars, and one violin. So yeah, bring out your fiddle. People will probably enjoy that as long as you don't play that music after hiker midnight, if you know what I'm saying. Hiker midnight is, when it sun goes down and it's like around 9 p.m. And if you have any questions about hiker midnight, Dixie from Homemade Wonderlist actually talks about that and when that is and how you should behave on hiker midnight. Just saying. eWatt74 is asking, did you finish earlier or later than you thought you would? How many zeros did you take? So, did I finish earlier or later than I thought I would? I am very happy that I didn't really set myself a goal on when to finish. I thought I would finish within 6 months. So if I were to say I thought I finished within 6 months, I finished later because it took me 6 months and 12 days. I took around 39 zeros, which was way too much, and I think that would be one of the things that I had to do differently. I enjoyed my zeros, but sometimes we did double zeros, which were not necessary, and so I would probably allocate my zeros differently to a different sort of enjoyment and that way I would finish the trail a little bit differently. Those are the main questions that I got from you guys. Stephanie Ashley, though, is addressing one of the questions that a lot of people asked. So, why did you not continue with Fox and Cheeseball? The main thing was that we were having different preferences on how we would want to hike. We all wanted to get to Katahdin, but we wanted to get to Katahdin in a different way. I enjoyed my zeros. At some point, it was not correlating with what I wanted to do anymore. The biggest thing, though, that really broke the camel's back on us separating was that our communication was extremely lacking. And we no longer communicated as people who trust each other should have. Therefore, we decided to separate. That was really the only drama that there was. We did care about each other. We loved each other and we wanted to hike Katahdin together. However, we didn't communicate anymore and we had different preferences on how to hike. And so hiking your own hike was very important to me. That was one of the main things that I knew that I wanted to do when I started this journey. I wanted to do what I wanted to do. And that might sound selfish to some people, but this is why I did the hike. I wanted to do this for myself. Groceries decided to stick with me, and Cheeseball and Fox decided to stick together, and I wanted to do what I wanted to do. If people wanted to tag along, that was wonderful for me. I did often find a compromise in things, but I realized after a while that the compromising was affecting how I felt. I no longer wanted to feel any sort of negative feelings, any sort of resentment, any sort of things of I wish I would have, could have. So I realized I need to get back to hiking my own hike, realizing that I needed to move on ahead. And I was very, very lucky that Groceries decided to move ahead with me. Having a trail family is extremely important. I think it's very difficult to do this hike without people. Having somebody to keep accountable is almost ensuring you to be able to make the hike happen. So thank you so much to Fox and Cheeseball. They were there during really dark times for myself, and I was there for very dark times for them. You know, sometimes things just have to change because you have to do what you have to do for yourself. And I think to whoever wants to hike the trail next year, that's a big thing. You can compromise, but also you need to be authentic to yourself. And it's just an example of hiking your own hike, right? So I met these two guys, Birdman and Steps, at the beginning of my hike, and I really enjoyed hiking with them and I wanted to keep up with them. But at that time, my knee was very injured and I tried to keep up with them. They were extremely fast and I injured myself more by doing that. I realized so much I wanted to be with them, but at the same time it was bad for my body. So I had to make the decision not to hike with them anymore, and it was very upsetting to me. But in the end, you know, everything worked out the way it did. I ended up hiking with Fox, and then we had Cheeseball come and join us, and then we had Little Chap come and join us, and then we had Groceries come and join us. So it was really all meant to work the way it was supposed to work, I think. Anyway, long answer, but that's it.